Hi there, I'm about to go on stage at reInvent 2023 and need some help.
Hi, Shaun. How can I help?
reInvent is huge, and I want to make my session stand out. Can you help me come up with a video opening?
Of course. How long should the video be?
Let's say around a minute. Just enough time to grab the audience's attention. They're probably tired after a full day of learning.
I am always ready to help. Videos always need a good music pairing. What kind of music would you like?
I'd like to set the right mood for my talk, so let's choose something high energy with a good beat.
Great idea. The right level of energy is important for the video. Popular videos like this typically include catchy music, engaging visuals, and relevance to the audience. A montage could be a good option.
Yes, a montage. I love that. How about putting a couple of your jokes in there?
I think the audience would like your own comedic material, Shaun. Tell me more about your talk so I can create the right production script for you.
My talk is all about inspiring people to unlock the potential of generative AI for their industry. I have content I've created in the past full of examples of how far generative AI has come in the last year and how it can apply to all of their businesses.
Got it. I've put together the script and sent it to you. You will have it momentarily.
That's great. One more question. Do you want to help present my talk?
You are the expert. You've got this. Good luck.
All right, fair enough. Okay, Alexa, let's count down and start the show with that video.
Starting show in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Generative AI is here, and what seemed impossible just a year ago suddenly isn't. The question is, how? How can you reinvent your industry? How can you reimagine how you work? How can you redefine customer experiences? Generative AI is unlocking powerful new capabilities that will change your business. It's surfacing targeted financial advice, speeding drug discovery, and personalizing shopping. It's reducing time to market for manufacturers, accelerating production workflows in media and entertainment, and transforming how vehicles are designed. It's boosting productivity, accelerating innovation, unlocking new business models, and creating new competitive advantages. We are at an inflection point where how we work and innovate for our customers is being reinvented with generative AI, and it's only the beginning. Generative AI is poised to transform every aspect of how you and your industry operate. So, the question isn't how, it's how soon.
Please welcome the Director of Technology Industries, Shaun Nandy.
Hi everyone, generative AI's time is now. Thank you all for joining me at my 9th reInvent. Today you're going to hear from 3 incredible customers who are using generative AI to reinvent experiences. You all heard Alexa kick off my talk today. How many of you are using some sort of AI in your home? Yep, that's what I thought. Awesome, almost everyone. AI is taking the world by storm, and today I'm here to help you establish a framework on how you can integrate generative AI into your products and experiences. Let's start with artificial intelligence. AI has been helping us in our daily lives by curating what we watch on our favorite streaming networks, helping accelerate drug discovery, and even enabling things like smart thermostats. These are all augmenting human capabilities. Machine learning is similar to how humans learn by mimicking others and following patterns. For example, imagine a radiologist who's looking at medical imagery and inferring what they've been looking at. ML models have been trained on thousands of images that have been annotated by humans to accurately describe what is being shown. Deep learning, on the other hand, is like machine learning, but machine learning still requires humans to be in the loop. A deep learning model is based on the neural networks that mimic the human brain. That allows deep learning models to quickly understand complex patterns and improve their capabilities over time. Generative AI, on the other hand, as the name infers, generates new content and ideas, including conversations, stories, images, video, and even music. This content is ultimately created from foundation models, known as FMs. FMs are unique. They are trained on internet-scale data, What makes FM special is that they can perform so many more tasks because they contain so many parameters that make them capable of learning complex concepts. Customers have asked us how they can take advantage of generative AI in FMs today and be ready for what's coming tomorrow. When we think about generative AI applications, there are so many possible. One that we're seeing now already are for shoppers on Amazon.com. When you go to Amazon.com and look at a product, one of the reasons you come is for those thousands of reviews. But when you see all those reviews against a product, it can be a bit much. How do you sort of parse them? We've recently brought to production on the mobile app a Gen AI-based review summary that shows up right at the top of the screen and summarizes the key salient points from those reviews. That saves customers so much time in shopping. And when it comes to productivity, think about writer's block. That's the thing. What about coder's block? Gen AI is helping coders develop faster already today. Amazon Code Whisperer is our AI coding companion. My team ran a test with a set of engineers, a productivity challenge, and they found out that developers using Code Whisperer finished tasks 57% faster and were 27% more likely to complete them successfully. It's not about what the technology itself does, it's about how you combine it with your people's skills and competencies, and most importantly, your vision. Now, we know that generative AI drives an incredible amount of scale. It generates an incredible amount of output, and how you store and manage that matters. We have customers who've built AWS Ultra clusters with support for up to 30,000 accelerators with terabytes of throughput per second and millions of IOPS. We've seen a 1600x increase in size and model parameters, which makes optimized infrastructure critical to train and host these models. Cost to serve really matters when you're operating and executing at scale. Now, all of your leaders in your business, and I love this quote, a bunch of you will probably recognize it, it's a fun quote. Gen AI has brought an incredible amount of power, responsibility, and opportunity to your teams. It's a way to augment human capabilities, not replace them, and it accelerates human innovation and creativity. According to the World Economic Forum, by 2027, we expect 2.6 million new jobs to be created by generative AI. And to get this right, we need training. We need to train people. And Amazon has announced their new AI Ready program, which is designed to provide free AI skills to 2 million people globally by 2025. Now, to make this journey easier, there are 3 areas I'm going to take you through that have some natural tension, and then you'll hear from our customers about them. First, ideation. How do you identify and pick the right use cases, the right ideas, and bring them forward? How do you prioritize them? Second, how do you turn those ideas into products and services? What tools do you use? And finally, governance. How do you balance the right risks to make sure that you're in the right place for your customers and your industry? Let's start with ideation. How do you pick those right use cases that'll drive the most opportunity for your business? First, you have to fall in love with the opportunity, not the solution. For the technologists in the audience, which is many of us, me too by the way, we see great tech and we want to use it. We feel we have to use it. First, you have to step back and ask yourself, what problem am I solving? Are you drowning under a million paper cuts? Is there a mountain of invoices? Maybe you hired a lot of new employees in the last couple of years and they don't have the years of expertise in your business. Ultimately, what is the outcome you are trying to achieve? At Amazon, we find it helpful to do this by working backwards from the customer, or in this case, the problem or opportunity that you've identified. What it takes to have an outcome-oriented mindset is to make sure you know what success looks like and you define it. For instance, in your call center operations, do you want to see wait time drop by 35% for your customers? Or do you want to see employees answer customer questions 85% of the time without that dreaded transfer out to a supervisor and that long hold time? Don't be limited by what you could do in the past. You have to think outside the box. Generative AI is opening up new doors. Some of the products you're going to hear about today, some of the things our customers are building, they didn't even seem possible before generative AI, certainly not financially viable. Cloud unlocked the ability a decade plus ago to experiment iteratively. Not that many years ago, you had to request CapEx, find power and cooling, get hardware to get your idea to even get started going. Now you can expand that cloud mindset to generative AI. You want to be able to fail fast, experiment quickly. You have the power to drive that iterative experimentation. So I was in an ideation session recently with a customer, and it was great. In the course of a day, we came up with 300 use cases, super inspiring. And at the end of the day, we were like, overwhelmed. We don't have that big a team, we don't have enough finance, we don't have enough time. How do we even start? You need to ruthlessly prioritize. Think about the business value and the feasibility. When we start thinking about the opportunity, is this driving new revenue, new products, improving customer experiences? How do you weight all these for your business? The chart on the screen is a mental model you can use. Try to get to that top right corner where it's high feasibility, high business value. Just make sure you have some type of scoring model in place. One of the customers I've seen do this really well is Intuit. Many of you heard their story this morning in Swami's keynote about building for their 100 million customers and launching their GenOS platform. Intuit had a top-down goal to lead the way in generative AI. Their technology futures R&D team has the mantra of, let all flowers bloom, but keep the ones we pick. Intuit encouraged broad learning and experimentation, but they set up mission-based teams that could share best practices and prioritize the use cases that would drive the most value aligned to the business. Today, they're fueling rapid innovation at scale across their products with services for Gen AI-powered fintech applications. Now, getting your data foundation right is really important. Data matters. It matters a lot. Generative AI is creating massive amounts of data. Meta's Llama 2 model was trained on over 2 trillion tokens. That's 350 million Wikipedia's worth of data. For our enterprise, one of the most interesting things about generative AI is you have the ability to monetize and leverage your data. You have a unique competitive advantage you can realize. But first, you have to get that foundation right so you can store and maintain all that data. In every case, data matters. There is a lot to consider, and this is a good slide to probably snap a picture of, because I'm not going to go through it all. That would take a bit more time than we have. But I'll start by saying, make sure you're using diverse data sets. Your data sets are in the cloud. They're probably relatively accessible if you want to make them accessible. And that means your models will see more patterns and generate more creative and higher quality outcomes. You want to make sure that you have a vector database in your portfolio. This allows you to store and query vectors at scale and supports retrieval augmented generation, which is critical for foundation models. Amazon has solutions, multiple vector DBs available, and consider using our new knowledge bases for Amazon Bedrock as well. And finally, you have to evaluate trade-offs and cost. All this data has to go somewhere. You need to think about which elements you're going to leverage repeatedly and which outputs you want to store for the long term. Leverage services like S3 Intelligent Tiering and Glacier. Now, let's talk about execution. When we think about execution, you need the right tool for the right job. When we talk to customers, they tell us they need security and privacy, scale and price performance, and most importantly, solutions that are relevant to their business. When we think about how we're investing across our stack, we focus on choice and flexibility. Now, I think you'll recognize this stack. You probably saw in Adam's keynote. We look at generative AI at all 3 layers. At the bottom, we have the best infrastructure for foundation model training and inference. In the middle, we bring you Bedrock to train and build with foundation models. And at the top are the applications that use foundation models, meaning you don't have to think about how they operate. Starting at the bottom of the stack with infrastructure, there are 2 primary types of workloads, training and inference. FMs can contain hundreds of billions of parameters. For example, the largest model in existence, the Falcon 180 billion parameter model, was trained on Amazon SageMaker with 4,000 GPUs and 3.5 trillion tokens. We have new services like SageMaker HyperPod launching that make training even easier. Keep in mind, training can cost tens of millions of dollars and take many months. You heard yesterday from Jensen, CEO of NVIDIA, in Adam's keynote about our partnership with NVIDIA and how we're going to be giving AWS customers access to NVIDIA's latest and greatest GPUs. Super exciting. But for the last 5 years, we've also been investing in our own silicon to push the envelope on price and performance. Yesterday, Adam announced Trainium 2, which is 4 times faster, making it ideal for training workloads. For inference, we offer Inferentia 2 with 70% lower cost than prior generations. This ability to maximize performance and control costs is why leading AI startups like Anthropic, Stability AI, and Grammarly are all using AWS, along with enterprises like Autodesk and Airbnb. Now, when I go to the middle of the stack, it's all about Amazon Bedrock, our fully managed serverless service that offers a choice of high-performing foundation models. You can use it to experiment with the top FMs, customize them with your data, and use Bedrock agents to execute business tasks, from processing insurance claims to managing inventory, all without writing any code. You don't have to worry about managing infrastructure, and Bedrock supports GDPR and HIPAA for compliance. But the real power of Bedrock is it's a single API. This means you can switch between foundation models, experiment, upgrade, innovate with minimal rework. You are not stuck with the model that you started with. And as you heard from Swami this morning, exclusive to Bedrock, we have the Amazon Titan family of models, including high-performing image, multimodal, and text model choices. Now, at the top of the stack, we are building customers that help their customers take advantage of generative AI. Amazon Code Whisperer streamlines coding, and AWS Health Scribe improves clinical efficiency in healthcare by automatically creating notes from doctor-patient conversations. That's just a start. Yesterday, we announced Amazon Q. Amazon Q is a game changer. It's an assistant that's designed for the enterprise from day one. It will be tailored to your business using the corporate data that you allow it to connect to. Let's watch Matt Wood chat with Q. You can see him not just asking a question, but appending his own data and having Q return insights in real time. Q can be connected to your business data, information, and systems so it can have tailored conversations, solve problems, generate content, and take actions that are relevant to your business. Q understands Matt's roles and what system he has access to. You can see Q actually take action and create a Jira ticket for Matt to review. We've designed Amazon Q to meet stringent enterprise security and privacy requirements from the beginning. Now, how do you balance risk? Let's talk about governance. All FM models have that risk of hallucinations. You need to think through your guardrails and how you have experts in the loop. You make sure you pick the right use cases that are low risk, and that you make sure the right data is training your models. One example is if you're using GenAI to support your finance teams, you want it to bring them back ideas, insights, identify problems, but probably not write those final ledger statements that are getting published for GAAP accounting. When you think about toxicity, you want to make sure that your employees and customers are not seeing content that's harmful. And of course, you have to consider intellectual property rights holders and protect your corporate data. You should start, the first action, implement a responsible AI program. You want to follow the principles of transparency, fairness, accountability, and privacy. There's so many attributes to a responsible AI program to consider. They all require human oversight, with AI augmenting human judgment, not replacing it. And you want to bring a cross-functional team together to do that. Now, we were super excited to hear about the launch of Guardrails on Bedrock. Guardrails on Bedrock can be applied to any foundation model, including for fine-tuned models supported by Bedrock, as well as agents. Whether you're configuring harmful content filtering, following your responsible AI policies, defining and disallowing denied topics with short natural language discussions, once you've done it once, it'll apply to every model that you use through Bedrock for that use case. And coming soon, you'll be able to redact sensitive PII information in your FM responses. It's awesome. Okay, not gonna hold you up any longer. Gonna bring our first customer on stage. They're gonna talk to you about finding the right balance between ideation, execution, and governance. We're gonna hear from Mark, who's the CIO of Gilead Sciences, who's gonna talk about how him and his company are applying generative AI across the pharma value chain.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mark Burson. I'm the Chief Information Officer for Gilead Sciences. It's a real pleasure to be with you today to talk about our Gen AI journey at Gilead. For those unfamiliar, Gilead Sciences is a $28 billion revenue pharma company headquartered in the Bay Area and focusing on 3 primary therapeutic areas: oncology, virology, and inflammation. We developed a cure for hepatitis C. We are the leader in HIV, aiming to end the HIV epidemic, and we deliver personalized cell therapy for late-stage various cancers. The pharma industry, like many, has its challenges. Drug development has a 90% failure rate and averages 10 years and billions of dollars to bring a drug to commercial market. Delays in discovery, clinical trials, and regulatory approvals can all impact a company's ability to bring life-saving treatments to patients in critical need. We aim to bring these drugs to the market faster and with higher efficacy. We aim to do so by reducing cycle time and cost through the reduction of manual tasks and the elimination of redundant tasks. We aim to increase speed and agility. We believe Gen AI can help. Now, if those challenges weren't enough, there are a broader set of challenges. From a research and innovation perspective, we have to stay at the forefront of scientific innovation and technological advancements. This is essential for delivering breakthrough therapies, and it requires us to consume massive amounts of research and attract top talent to do so. Of course, this talent wants to work with world-class technologies to advance the science, including Gen AI. We also have regulatory challenges. We must navigate complex and evolving regulatory frameworks, including stringent requirements of regulatory agencies like the FDA and in Europe, the EMA, in order to bring life-saving drugs to market. These activities consume a meaningful portion of the overall cycle time to commercialize a drug. Leveraging technology for automated continuous compliance is an example of a key time-improving opportunity to serve our patients. We also have challenges in the arena of market access and commercialization. If we don't get these drugs into the hands of the people who need them, the countries that are least served will go, will go unserved. So, we see an opportunity to successfully launch a drug in the market through analyzing the local market, through market research, and we also see that there are challenges around getting into the local markets as quickly as we can. Gen AI can help us with this, and we need to seek every advantage that we can get. Now, Gen AI needs to be built on a solid foundation. At Gilead, we value the resilience, speed, and scalability that cloud provides. For us, cloud is a strategic business imperative. Cloud enables us to scale our operations efficiently and innovate with speed and agility. We've moved about 80% of our cloud workloads, of our compute and storage workloads to cloud over the past couple of years, and now we run our most mission-critical workloads on AWS. We partnered with AWS not just because of their technology, but for their passion for transforming industries like the life sciences industry and inventing together. We see cloud as a critical platform to enable the entire value chain, from drug discovery to drug commercialization. Now, all enterprises are also experiencing exponential growth in data, both in terms of volume and variety of data sources. To manage data at scale, we need to move away from monolithic approaches. We must apply modern organizational and engineering practices. And this will enable us to move quickly and respond to business needs and collaborate more effectively to create insights. At Gilead, we've adopted a data mesh architecture for our enterprise data platform to manage data at scale. Now, in addition to this data mesh architecture, we've also focused on data ownership. We've pushed data ownership into business domains to decentralize ownership to business teams that are closest to the data and have the business context for that data. We've also adopted a data as a product architecture. We've published over 300 data products to this enterprise data platform running on AWS Cloud in the last couple of years. These data products have a set of usability characteristics, including that the data is discoverable, addressable, understandable, trustworthy, useful, accessible, and interoperable. We have enabled a self-service data infrastructure. This is a set of services to manage the full life cycle of data as a product. This helps to reduce the total cost of decentralized ownership of data. And finally, we've created a data governance operating model. This is based on a federated decision-making and accountability structure. We need central standards and central governance, but federated domain ownership. So the combination of this data mesh architecture and operating model enables us to respond gracefully to change and increase the ROI and sustainability in the face of growth. Now, on top of this cloud and data foundation, we are also adopting AI, machine learning, and deep learning. Many of our functional teams are working on Gen AI use cases, which I will talk about. Analytics use cases can be scaled quickly and deployed quickly across the entire value chain of the drug process. And we're, for example, applying analytics to uncover hidden relationships between molecules, targets, and diseases. We use a cloud-based AI platform to convert complex medical data into valuable clinical insights, as well as to improve supply chain performance and forecasting. These are just a few examples that illustrate the possibilities that can be enabled by cloud data and analytics. It's important to note AI already plays an important critical role within the pharmaceutical industry. In fact, machine learning tools are being incorporated into areas such as disease identification, drug discovery and manufacturing, predictive forecasting, patient recruitment, and the organization of clinical trials. At Gilead, we have identified high-value ROI use cases across the value chain. We feel the best way to do so is to break down functional barriers and take an enterprise mindset and enterprise view of Gen AI investment candidates. These candidates can be broad, and capacity to deliver against these potential use cases will be constrained, and many of the use cases require cross-functional collaboration in order to ensure success. While some will be a faster time to value, for example, we delivered a Gilead GPT, trained it on basic employee benefits data, ask a question, how many vacation days do I have left? What's my retirement plan balance? Others will take longer to deliver, but will likely be higher value, like target assessment for drug discovery. The next 3 to 5 years, we think, will likely prove AI's value in core pharmaceutical research and development, especially in drug discovery, and other areas across the value chain. At Gilead, we view AI as an enabler that can augment decision-making, increase efficiencies, and accelerate insights from cloud-scale data. Drug discovery in particular is known to be an ever-complex challenge that's incredibly expensive and time-consuming. It also involves multiple sub-processes, including target identification and validation, hit identification, and lead optimization. Generative AI has shown great promise in accelerating and improving the drug discovery processes. Most use cases of generative AI have been in the creation of new drug molecules, but there is also potential for the technology in target identification and drug repurposing. As the pharmaceutical industry shifts towards developing more complex and targeted therapies, the role of generative AI will become even more critical. It must be noted that there are a few companies that have already leveraged AI to identify molecules in several months as compared to several years that it usually takes using conventional research methods. Let's take a look at one use case in particular. Reimagining target assessment in drug discovery using generative AI. Target assessment is a crucial step in drug discovery. It helps to prioritize which targets are worth pursuing for potential new medications. This includes identifying relevant research, analyzing that research, and applying that research at speed for the initial stages of target identification and validation. We feel a step change in the efficiency and effectiveness of this process can be achieved through the use of large language models to quickly identify and analyze vast amounts of scientific literature and databases. The generative AI capabilities we're working to deliver for target assessment, it's not just about a technology. It's about transforming the way we work. It enables the scientists to perform natural language Q&A, to summarize research literature. It allows them to dynamically produce and update synthesized research reports, including references to enable target assessment. It also automatically generates quality results for an up-to-date knowledge base of research and literature data. The benefits of this, I think, are obvious. It's to accelerate the delivery of target assessment reports, and architectural patterns and large language model operations from the pilot could possibly be reusable across other use cases at Gilead. The name of the game is a potential for higher throughput, doing more with the same amount of resource. So at Gilead, we defined our cloud strategy with our business goals and outcomes, and from that we evolved to a guiding set of principles for Gen AI. We do think it's important to follow principles as we work through the process of enabling Gen AI use cases. We have a principle that data and models must run in our cloud platform, and we want to enable rapid experimentation. We want to collaborate across the enterprise on use cases and technology enablement. We want to enable model choice, acknowledging that certain models are going to be optimized for specific use cases. We want to follow AI and machine learning best practices, and we want to establish governance policies and architectural frameworks to ensure the responsible use of AI. So to summarize, I think our first learnings are self-explanatory. We want to organize our principles, build on our cloud data and analytics foundations, and take an enterprise approach to identifying high-value use cases. The next three, sponsorship and executive championing. Executives are a stakeholder group in and of themselves. We found that it's important to help them envision the art of the possible, and again, to take an enterprise mindset, breaking down functional barriers. We also think it's important for this not to be an IT project, but really to drive tight alignment between business and IT to ensure pragmatic application of the technology, measuring success with business outcomes. And finally, we want to ensure security, governance, and operations at scale. As many of us are starting to get to the point of moving Gen AI use cases from pilot and prototyping into production, we must ensure that security, governance, and operations is industrialized and ready to be executed at scale. Thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you, Mark, for coming out and sharing that story with us. I was especially listening to how that data foundation that Gilead has built the last several years has had such an impact on accelerating their journey. And I think that's the first time I've heard LLM ops discussed, definitely a new and emerging area. Next, we're going to hear from Carrier, one of the largest manufacturing companies in the world. They're going to talk about how they're deploying generative AI across their business. Please welcome my friend Seth Walker, Head of Artificial Intelligence at Carrier.
All right, thank you, Shaun. Hello, everyone, and thank you to the fantastic AWS team for inviting me to come up here today. So if for some reason you've never heard of Carrier, I can assure you that you have felt us. As our founder, Willis Carrier, over 100 years ago invented monitored air conditioning, and you are feeling the effects of that transformative technology today. And in the 100 years since then, we have continued to transform technology in this space by innovating across, innovating across HVAC, fire and security, and refrigeration businesses, where we are ensuring intelligent climate solutions, building automation, fire and security and safety, and including cold chain to ensure that not only are you comfortable, but the food that you eat, the drugs that you take are all arriving to your home at the temperature they need to be so that they arrive effectively and safely. Carrier is a large company, $20.4 billion in net sales, over 52,000 employees, 75 plus brands, and 100 plus new products in the last 8 years. This is a big company, right? A legacy company that's been around for a long time. And it can be very difficult, right, as any of you know who have been part of a legacy company, to be able to continue to drive and transform innovation. And we managed to continue doing it. And we are continuing to do it not just in our physical products, but also through our digital transformation that we are continuing to undergo over the last several years. But the question for me, when it comes to a large company like this, and when we want to start to think about digital transformation and how we can leverage AI within our company, is how do we actually create a strategy that applies to a company that large, that can enable us to drive AI innovation, that can enable adoption, that can enable us to actually start to innovate and integrate this transformative technology into our products and into our processes so that we can drive value to our business. And this is not an easy ask, as anyone knows. Even at smaller companies, this is not an easy thing to achieve. And at bigger companies, it's even more difficult. You have multiple business verticals, you have multiple business functions within those verticals, you have multiple teams within those business functions, and each of those teams have different specialties and different types of technical capabilities. And you need to be able to account for all of this complexity when you're designing your enterprise AI strategy. So how do you go about doing it? It's complex, right? This is a hard question. So what we've done is we've created 4 pillars of AI strategy at Carrier. And it's going to essentially encompass 2 things, right? What does every company, encompass? It's going to be either people or it's going to be tools and processes. On the people side, you have to enable communication and competency. That means you need to be communicating with your employees, with your customers, about the types of ways in which we can leverage this technology. You have to upskill your associates. And I don't mean just your technical associates. Of course, we want to make sure that our data scientists, our engineers, our analysts are all upskilling themselves in such a way that they can start to actually leverage and drive this technology. But as we know, it doesn't matter how good your models are. It doesn't matter how good your tech stack is if you don't have business partners that understand how you can leverage it. And so it is key that as part of your communication and competency strategy, that you are working with your business to make sure that they understand how to connect your AI strategy and the technology to specific use cases in ways that it can actually drive value for your company. This is achieved through having a strong delivery team, through the talent pipeline. By having a centralized delivery team that can focus on the innovative use cases, that can focus on creating that innovative technology, you're going to be able to pave the way for them, right? So that other teams throughout the organization that might not have the technical acumen or the ability that you have are able to piggyback off of what you've created in order to drive innovation within their own areas. And key to all of this is all interlocking, are the tools and the processes. So you always have to have that centralized platform. People across the organization, anyone here that has experience with more traditional AI and now even more importantly with generative AI, know that there are a lot of risks, and those risks aren't just limited to generative AI. If someone doesn't know what they're doing, it is very easy to build a model that looks fantastic in training, but in production fails miserably because of various issues with the data or how you structured the problem. By creating a centralized platform that takes the learnings from your experts that are centrally located, that they can then structure and kind of create the guardrails and framework for, that they can then push to your other associates and the rest of the people throughout the company, you're now driving that innovation because you've created that pathway for them, and you're generating the guardrails that ensure their success. And this is all encompassing, right? It's not just the platform for AI, but it's data too, as you've heard. And of course, surrounding all of it is governance, right? Governance is, of course, getting even more important now as we start thinking about generative AI and the particular types of risks that come with generative AI. But by incorporating the governance framework into the centralized platform, ensuring that that governance framework is incorporated with your people and the upskilling of those people, you can ensure that all of this is kind of working together to ensure that you have a centralized framework that can be decentralized across the organization to, again, enable innovation and mitigate risk. So we've heard a lot about all the technology and all the things that people are doing with generative AI, and I don't want to miss out on the bandwagon. So what have we done when it comes to actually deciding use cases? So we've created this, kind of enterprise structure that helps us to enable our enterprise strategy, helps us to drive AI adoption across the organization. But what does that mean for specific use cases? And what does that mean across the long term? We don't want to just think about what are we going to do tomorrow, although that's important, but we want to think about where do we want to be as a company in 5 to 10 years. You don't get to be a 100-plus-year-old company without thinking the long term. And with generative AI, it's simple, and it's very closely related to the way that you might think about classical AI. There are foundational capabilities of generative AI. And starting from the bottom here, thinking of it as a foundation, we have the obvious, content generation, chat, right? The kinds of things that everyone thinks about, going to ChatGPT, typing in a question and getting a response. Then you can kind of iterate on top of that, and you have document analysis, you have research and ideation, development analytics, all the way to the gold, the real long-term where we want to be, right, is AI agents, And you can see how these things kind of build on top of each other, right? I mean, you have your basic chat. In order to do that, in order to have document analysis, you have to have chat. In order to be able to kind of push forward on research and analytics, you need to have the research and ideation piece. In order to have AI agents, you have to have all of it, right? And so every use case that we're tackling as a company at Carrier is not only geared towards generating specific business value in specific use cases, but it's also geared towards creating these foundational capabilities so that as we think towards the long term, we've already created that expertise and we paved that pathway of innovation to allow us to get to that long-term objective, right? And so let's get into an actual use case, one of many that we have deployed so far at our company. So on the surface, this use case actually seems a little kind of basic, and people will ask me, well, this isn't flashy, right? This doesn't look cool. What is this, right? I see this already. So what we want to do, right, is we have our supply chain. Everyone always hears about all the issues with supply chain, and supply chain is, of course, a very important aspect of our business for our customers, right? They want to make sure that they're getting their products on time when we say they are, and they want to have transparency and visibility into that. And so, we have tools that our customers can come to understand, where is my shipment, what's in it. But we wanted to kind of integrate this capability into a chatbot. Now, again, this sounds not impressive, right? We've done that before. Right? We've built chatbots that can answer questions about data. But what's different about this with generative AI is that in the past, if you wanted to build a chatbot that could query data, you had to pre-map all of that out. You had to predefine all of those branches. You had to say, if the customer wants this, then you have to tell the API to call this. With generative AI and leveraging AWS Bedrock agents, we just have to feed the API and the documentation to the agent, and it's able to, I say intuitively, but understand exactly how to use that API to get the information that it wants. So you can see here as the customer interacts with the chatbot that we have not pre-programmed any of this. The AI naturally is able to leverage the correct API calls to pull the correct data. And you can see the implications of this. It reduces the overhead to development. What used to take many, many hours can now be done in a much more simple way. And you can also see how it creates those kinds of foundational capabilities, right? Because we have this AI kind of data foundation that it needs to be able to query, and we want it to take an independent action, without having a human have to pre-program it and tell it what to do. This is incredible. I mean, this is the future. And so we have identified over 50 use cases across the business, and I'm sure there are many, many more. And my team, I think right now we have about 2 use cases in production with another about to go next week. That's just for generative AI. I'm not even touching classical AI. And we have more use cases on the way. I'm hoping to have several more done by the end of the year. And this is going to touch every single aspect of our business. This is truly transformative. In the same way that air conditioning and HVAC transformed our society, this is the same way in which it's going to be transforming with generative AI. It's truly, truly amazing. So just to kind of cap it all off, first of all, you want to make sure you're creating that space for innovation while also minimizing risk. This is all about that enterprise AI strategy. When you're thinking from an executive level and you're thinking, how do I structure an organization to ensure that my employees are working towards our corporate goals? This is what you think about, right? You're thinking about those 4 pillars of how we can create a structure to our organization, create the tools and processes and the philosophies needed in order to ensure that we're all geared towards the same goal. That includes upskilling our people, and again, not just your technical people. Everyone knows we need to upskill our technical people, but we have to upskill the business too, because AI is not always those highly general cases, right? This isn't Skynet, right? You want to identify specific use cases in specific areas where the business sees a gap, and there's an area where they can optimize or produce value, and you want to create a solution that involves AI, if it's the appropriate solution, that will help them generate that value and fill that gap. And then finally, I think that generative AI is really changing this build versus buy equation. In the past, a lot of the overhead with AI was massive, right? If you were talking to some vendors who want to build a product for you, they're building this based on many years of experience with massive amounts of training data that they've created, and it's very tailored with a lot of domain expertise. But generative AI kind of changes that conversation. Some of the stuff that used to take experts, months in order to build, you can now do in days. The very first application we built with generative AI took 2 days. It's amazing, truly transformative. And so, with that, I thank everybody. Thank you, AWS, for having me, and have a good day.
Huge thank you to Seth. That was great. I live by Carrier, mainly because my in-laws are in Phoenix, my parents are from Oklahoma. I need that air conditioning. It was really interesting, though, hearing about the decreased development and engineering time to build and deploy with generative AI. Now, we're going to talk about the media and entertainment space. You're going to hear from the Director of Science Innovation at Prime Video and Amazon Studios, talking about some of the exciting projects they're working on leveraging generative AI. Please welcome Faye.
Well, hello everyone. Let's kick off with a quote from The Matrix by none other than Morpheus. I'd like to free your mind, Neo, but I can only show you the door. You are the one who has to walk through it. Today, we're not just opening doors, we're really pushing the boundaries of what generative AI can help us do to innovate and deliver immersive experiences while solving technical challenges. Welcome to re:Invent. My name is Faye Kalel. I lead Science Innovation in Prime Video and Studios, where we are on a mission to build the world premium entertainment hub. In fact, over the last few years, we expanded globally, increased our content catalog with the acquisition of MGM, delivered third-party partnerships on the service, and became the home of Thursday Night Football. And I hope many of you have enjoyed our inaugural Black Friday NFL game last week. We bring premium entertainment to everyone. We have over 200 million customers worldwide. We serve them across 240 territories. Yet the question that begs itself with such massive scale is, how do you deliver a premium experience without spinners? And how do we personalize our ever-growing content catalog? In the next few minutes, I'd like to share with you 3 use cases of how generative AI-powered innovation is really helping us push the boundaries of entertainment. First, how do we deliver premium experience regardless of network bandwidth? Second, how do we upscale our low-resolution shows for higher-resolution screens? And third, how do we deliver personalized content discovery? I don't know about you, but for me, there is nothing worse than getting spinners when your favorite team is about to score a goal. And what we did to solve for this is we use video foundation models that have a deep understanding of content semantics, the objects and the action in a particular scene. And then we use encoding to upscale the salient parts of that video. And that helps us optimize and improve streaming quality when the network bandwidth is constrained. Let's take a look. In sports, this is a very crucial innovation. In a packed stadium, the teams are clashing. On the field, the clock is ticking to the last few minutes of that game, and the quarterback's golden field goal secures victory. Well, if as you're watching this play out, your attention is on the ball, the scorecard, the players, and you definitely want to see that quarterback who scored that goal. All of these moments define the essence of the game, and our ability to deliver optimized resolution is absolutely essential. Excellent. With the exponential adoption of higher resolution devices, our customers are seeking upscaled content. After all, you really want to enjoy the goodness of higher resolution screens. Yet traditional film remastering requires physical reels and have proven to be expensive, time-consuming, and error-prone. For example, remastering can cause physical damage to the reel and lead to discoloration, which ultimately hampers the integrity of a scene. We use AI super resolution to upscale content without the need for physical reels. Here's a side-by-side demo clip of the Stargate TV series, Season 1, Episode 3. Take a look. As I play another clip and walk you through the differences between the blurriness, low contrast in the original clip, specifically in nature scenes where it's quite pronounced, contrast that with the upscaled clip that shows these sharp, high contrast edges and much more immersive scenes. By show of hand, how many of you spend, let's say, 5, 10, 15 minutes browsing through titles before you find something you want to watch? Almost everybody. Well, it's always the case for me. Until now, we have actually developed a first-of-its-kind microgenre carousel generator tool. What this large language model Gen AI-powered innovation does is it empowers our merchandising and programming teams to actually use a seed title and a prompt to create deeply immersive content. So, for example, let's say we want to promote a full lineup of titles that are similar to the Lord of the Rings movies. You just provide this prompt to the tool, and the tool sifts through the entire catalog and produces a grouping of content that has high affinity with the Lord of the Rings. It can also go a step further and recommend a title header for such carousel. Maybe call it mythical high fantasy or inspired by Tolkien's Middle-earth stories. It is this level of micro-genre, very theme-based, very specific curation of content that truly immerses our customers and help you find something to enjoy. Now, what we did is we took this large language model application to the next level. In the past, we actually had very broad genre-specific carousels, as you see here on the screen, things like comedy movies or featured TV or hot deals. Now with this tool, we are able to actually automate the carousel creation that is very personal to every customer in every session based on your streaming behavior. And that really allows us, if you are a Prime Video fan and you watched The Boys, for example, it allows us to inspire your future streaming with a carousel, for example, called Action-Packed Superhero Flicks. I really hope you put this to the test and enjoy these very refined and curated carousels next time you stream on Prime Video. In closing, I have few thoughts to leave you with and another movie quote. It is clear that generative AI-powered experiences are changing how we get our entertainment fix, raising the bar on quality, resolution, and content discovery. Deeply immersive, personalized streaming is no longer an ideal, it is real, and it is here today. To that, a Blade Runner movie quote comes to mind: "The future is not something that happens, it's something you make." Here is to generative AI helping us make our ideals real. Thank you for your attention, and I hope you enjoyed our demos.
Thank you, Faye. That was incredible. By the way, as a fantasy football occasional addict, I will admit Thursday Night Football, I've watched it on my phone a few times, sneaking a look at a restaurant. Now I understand why I can make out those players' jerseys so clearly and figure out who scored the goal. A few takeaways from our customers. You can see some of the key things from ideation, execution, and governance. Make sure you're working backwards from the opportunity. Get your data foundation right. Leverage the right optimized infrastructure. Harness Bedrock for building those applications. Move even more quickly, if you can, using pre-built applications like Q. And finally, for governance, implement that responsible AI program and check out tech that makes it easy to implement, like Amazon Bedrock guardrails. The last piece, help people be inspired. These customers really inspired me. And I think if you want to reflect, go and do what they've been doing, their success that they've had, you have to have a bought-in team. The best advice I can give you here on people is to make sure you're clear on the why. Give your team the confidence there's a path forward to use generative AI. Make it clear what is in it for them. And our role as leaders is to really help people become inspired. Now, I'll also say everything you need to accelerate this journey is available from AWS. We're the easiest place to build with foundation models on Bedrock. We've been investing in the most price-performant infrastructure for machine learning with AWS Silicon and our partnerships with NVIDIA. Check out that preview of Amazon Q. And finally, I like how Adam put it yesterday. Bedrock is everything you expect from an AWS service. We did not use customer data to train FMs, so when you fine-tune a model, we make that private version, put it in a secure container, and it goes nowhere. Last, to make your phones a little happy, I have some QR codes up there, a few takeaways. We talked about skills. Check out Pathfinder, self-directed learning that you can consume on your own time. Leverage AWS TNC, the second link, training and certification. They have lots of structured coursework. And Swami mentioned that in June, we launched the Generative AI Innovation Center. Please check out that third link, see if they can help you build and solve your problems. For those of you in the room, if you haven't had the chance yet, check out the AWS for Industries Pavilion in the Expo Center. It's near the back. There are a ton of interactive demos there, including generative AI demos. And for those on the stream and who haven't heard yet, check out our other innovation talks, like our Generative AI for Architecture innovation talk that Francesca Vasquez did earlier today. Thank you all for coming out. A big thank you to our customers from Gilead Sciences, Carrier, and Amazon Prime Video. I hope I left everyone feeling a little inspired and ready to start building with AWS for your own generative AI use cases.